I'm Jackie Cooper. I'm going to, I suppose, be moderating this event, this panel. And I run a school called CG Pro, and we basically teach a bunch of industry classes to everybody and anybody who wants to learn. And have seen a lot in our 5 years of being a school. And we're a Gold Unreal Authorized Training Center, so that's me. And now I'd love to go down the line and have you introduce yourself and what your experience is in the world of film, animation, etc.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, I'm Renee. I'm vice president over at District Cinema. District Cinema, we do software development to location-based installments, utilizing markerless mocap, virtual production practices. I come from more of a Unreal generalist background, so that's how I've been able to intertwine with multiple forms of entertainment, whether it's games, film, TV, theme parks, the list goes on. So it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Greg Edwards, and I've had about 15 years experience in VR development, metaverse development, which is merged into game development and virtual production. Yeah, mostly just looking for all the technologies that come off in and out of each bubble, and very interested to see where this new AI bubble takes us and delivers us. So.
Andy Cochran. I'm an immersive and interactive creator and consultant. I helped build the Sphere next door. You can't see it, but it's right there. Everyone looks. And came from film school into visual effects into immersive and interactive. So 25 years of sort of doing this. I think we all did this. I think, yeah. And are currently doing this. So.
My name is Jeffrey Cater, and I founded S4 Studios in 1999 and built it into a visual effects powerhouse. We've done a lot of animation and VFX over the years, but about 3 years ago, I converted the company into a virtual production company, and we now have a stage over here in Burbank, about a 50-foot wall. We do shows with Discovery Channel and these types of things. So we're using virtual production with camera tracking, 2D, AI integration, and Unreal Engine.
Cool. So thank you very much for that. And as you can see, we've got a pretty awesome panel today. And I think the topic of this panel that I was asked to give was really talking about where the careers are right now and what suggestions you would have for your students on like how to break into the industry, where to go, what skills you might have. So I guess I'd like to start out with what skills or habits should high school students start developing if they're interested in film, games, or interactive media?
Yeah, that's what we were talking earlier, and what we kind of all agreed on is that understanding the foundations is very important, because the tool that you'll be using 5 years from now, probably even 5 months from now, with how quickly AI is changing, is going to be, it's changing. So that's where you need to be flexible. So just understanding the foundations, understanding that you have to be flexible, and then I think partially being like industry agnostic, because who knows when an industry is up and when an industry is down. So as long as you know what you, at the end of the day, at the root, what you're most interested in, let that be your guiding force, and in doing so, you could kind of always be relevant in whatever space and whatever evolution phase we're in said industry. So that would be my thoughts.
I'm going to kind of adjust the question to, if I was to give my younger self advice for the future from right here, my advice would be lots of internships, even if they're not in the skill set that you're passionate about. Learn a lot of different things. Like if you are wanting to get into film and television, you should absolutely learn about business, like business background, accounting, laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's even with gaming industry, definitely learn a lot of different aspects of business, because those things will never change. And you always need to be able to have a good business sense on your head, but then also get internships that maybe not in their skill set, because I never wanted to be like a videographer coming out of college. I did I got a job at a news station. I wanted to do something completely different than like gaming, but I ended up getting an amazing internship because I had videography experience from that job. You never know what skills are going to get your foot in the door in any position. So spread everything out.
The buttons are always going to change. User interface is constantly shifting. The software you should learn is always going to be a different answer. And I think anybody that's sort of trying to steer students today towards technology is probably, especially for media and entertainment, is teaching the wrong skills. The real skills is, why do you push those buttons? Not which button do you press, and when you press it, what does it do? And then how can you feed that into another button? Because those answers are changing constantly, and you're going to be graduating students that are pushing old buttons by the time, 4 years later they're graduating. But telling stories, compelling, and engaging with people. Why do we push these buttons? Like Gen AI doesn't tell stories, but it can be used to tell stories. And high school students have this amazing access to what it's like to be a teenager that costs billions of dollars for our industry to try to replicate. Very expensive directors and writers and very expensive film shoots and limited hours and, all kinds of laws, regulations and stuff. A high school student can make a story about themselves and their friends on an iPhone that could win Oscars. And it's because they have both a perspective and an access that is insanely rare and expensive for everyone that is not that age to have. So really it's pick up your cell phone and start filming, and I'll help you, I'll help you with the craft of storytelling. But it's not software, it's not iMovie, there's no advice. It's just whatever software is going to get. That's the means. And the end is entertaining people and engaging people. And they have such, I envy the heck out of I wish if I could go back to high school, it would specifically be so that I could make films that are now just out of reach, financially for me to even try to make.
So I've spent my whole career being a designer and a creative person, and I am a businessman as well because I'm interested in business. But my journey, and I think any journey for somebody who's young, is to figure out sort of what you are passionate about, what you really absolutely feel defines you as an artist. And I'm speaking to the artist mostly. Even as visual effects artists, I could say the same. What are you really stoked doing? Like, what do you love? Because if you get really good at that, that's something that you can offer to a studio. That's something somebody be willing to pay money for. Also, getting back to film and TV, if you love film, watch films. If you love television, like I've spent my whole career in broadcast, I watch TV, I watch commercials, I watch television shows of all varieties, so I can be the most informed on what's out there. Inform yourself about what's out there. Don't just watch stuff on YouTube or what have you because it's just eye candy. Watch films and television shows that are compelling, that are well written, that use camera techniques and edits that bring the audience along a journey to a point. If you can understand that fundamental principle, then you can also have a seat at the table with traditional filmmakers who spent their whole life not using that technology. I think that's the other thing. You have every DP I've worked with, if you say we're going to shoot it this way, the question is, why are we shooting it from this direction? What does this do to my film? How does this make, if it's a dolly shot in, what am I trying to achieve with that? So when you go on AI and it says dolly in, do you know why you're doing that? That's really the fundamental question. So I would say, be yourself, get good at something that you love, and the rest will take care of itself because technology will always change. And then but as long as you can adapt and evolve, being yourself, then you'll be a success.
Can I underline something that you just said that's so critical? If you want to be a filmmaker, take other films and put them into an edit timeline and re-edit them. You don't have to have a goal. Make a trailer out of it. Maybe just take a 12-minute short film and turn it into a 4-minute short film. You will learn more about the art of cinematography, acting, editing, etc. by taking a fully complete meal and trying to make a new meal out of that. You'll learn. I've learned more in the last year doing that than I have in 25 years working in the industry and 10 years before that wanting to.
Yeah, I mean, we did so much work in trailers back in the day, like just doing graphics. This set, this Sunday, next month, the blockbuster. And you start to see these, and you're working with trailer editors, and like they have to take an entire movie and condense it down into a 30-second spot that tells a story of a certain type. They could take a movie that's really serious and cut a trailer that's funny. They can make it horrifying. They can make it scary. That takes real skill and understanding of how to actually take the scenes from a movie and push them. So to your point, give yourself a challenge. Take a movie, cut a trailer that's about a horror movie that's actually pretty serious, but try to make it funny. That's a really cool creative challenge. You're right. And that's something you could actually show somebody who works at the studios and say, look, I did this. And they'll be like, oh, there's some thinking going on right there.
There was a trend, it started with Back to the Future. I think, no, it was Shining.
Shining, yeah.
Shining, in what, 2006 or something, 2007, of a spate of take a movie and edit a trailer in the style of a different film. So they made Shining into a Nora Ephron film, just really happy film. And I did Fellini's 8.5 and Eminem's 8.5 Mile, and I learned more doing that than most things I've done professionally in my career. And we just did it for fun. It was a joke at a party. It's like, oh, 8.5 Mile, oh, and just throwing somebody else's film in your timeline, you start seeing sequences, and you start seeing color, and you start seeing edit decisions, and the story becomes very visceral. And as you're trying to either just cut it down and tell the story, or tell a different story, you learn everything. And it's free. It is free. It costs nothing. You can do it on your phone. So there's no technology involved in doing something like that, and it's fun and insanely educational.
It seemed like you wanted to say something. Are you good? Oh, okay. So the one thing I wanted to add, sorry, just in case. The one thing I wanted to add myself to that is that in today's day and time, if you are looking for a job, do that and then share it on social media. Because being able to show that no matter what is happening in your world, that you are still trying, you are still experimenting, you are still learning, you are still sharing, is a vital aspect to being noticed. And that being noticed is, these days, what I'm seeing recruiters hire for. And when I'm looking for people, I do it too. I'm like, wow, I've been following their work. I like their work. Oh, wait, you know what? I might just contact them because they fit exactly what I'm looking for right now. So I tell all of my students, when you create something, share it. Share it if it's a test, share it if it's, any learnings from it, share.
Can I take right onto that?
Yeah.
I'd say, like, for just with how tricky and wild the industry is right now, I would say don't look for a job. Find a group or a brand or a company, whatever, what have you, and dedicate yourself to the idea that you have a problem and I have a solution for you, and not take no for an answer. My big break into VR is I really wanted to work for Coachella. Pitch them a project like, this is cool, but we don't really know what to do with this. So I very, illegally went ahead and made a VR project for Coachella and released it online for free. And they saw it within a few hours. And I had this great narrative that was put around on all the channels, like, fans of Coachella made this thing. And they're just like, okay, either they're going to hire us or sue us. And there was a great narrative of, look at these guys. They did something because they loved the festival so much. And it also coincided with the exact same time that Oculus got bought out by Facebook. So it was like perfect timing. So if you have your students look for solving a problem for companies outside, and if you're the one that solves the problem, you get all the glory.
I would even tag on to that the favor economy, where I don't know who told me about the favor economy, but it was definitely, in high school. It is the concept of, if somebody asks you for any help of any kind, you say yes, and you drop everything that you can drop to help them, and you don't view networking as a transactional experience. You meet people because you want to know them, and you stay in communication because you like them, and then when they need help, you help them. And then when you need help, and it could be that you need a job, but it's more often that you're trying to solve some problem or something, your network that you networked to build is actually just a whole bunch of people that owe each other and you favors. And so calling those in isn't this transactional, like, listen, I helped you, and now you owe me. It is much more, hey, we're friends, right? I'm trying to solve this problem. Can you help me? And that's enormous, and I don't think that there's enough, especially in film schools, enough concept of don't be transactional, be karma.
Don't find your in Hollywood. Find your community that you build up with, and that's why I love these guys at CG Pro so well, because they've done such a good job of curating such a community around their whole school.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
Anytime.
Yeah, no, it's community is a really important aspect of it because a rising tide gathers all ships, and that really is an important time in hard times. Even more so. So I'm going to change gears just slightly and ask, how can teachers introduce industry standard tools in a classroom with limited resources? Are there beginner-friendly versions you recommend? So if you're teaching film or that kind of thing, what would you recommend teachers start with?
I think an answer that I don't like that I'm going to say, but I think we have to admit to it, is like buy into the new things. So like look into TikToks, to social media, look what's happening on YouTube. There's a reason why all these things are popping off, making a lot of money, getting a lot of traction, a lot of noise, a lot of eyes looking at it. And I think, when we think about TikTok, we think about like the TikTok dances or the movements and things like that. But if you get past that and you look at the people who are curating content educationally, most of the time it's people like the good ones, the ones that like surpass everyone else, are ones that work in the industry that realize that they like to make their own content. They like to be their own boss. So in doing so, they go and create their own social media presence. And there's a lot of like professionals that, I think the industry is also changing in a way to where there's a lot more freelancers and contractors, to where individually you have to sell yourself as a brand. And in doing so, having a social media presence, like you were saying, is important. And I think that's where those individuals are people that you can look to see, like, what are those people talking about? Like a great resource online is CG Pro, hashtag. But also, like a good friend, Josh Tunin, talks about cinematics in Unreal, used to work in Hollywood. His slogan is, I used to work in Hollywood making Star Trek movies, and now I'm here to teach you how to make Star Trek at home. That's someone who's popping off on social media, that really insightful individual. I learned a lot from that person on the screen and, and on a personal level. So that's where I think looking at those places, but also seeing what's like free and available. Like there's Unreal, there's Blender, there's YouTube. And I think going back to what I was saying in the beginning, understanding the foundations on stuff. I think everyone has a microphone to speak, and you just got to filter out like what's the main point of what they're teaching, talking about, and then seeing if a bunch of people are also saying that one thing, so that you're starting to create your own concrete truth rather than just blindly following someone. If a group of collective people are saying, hey, be aware of AI, yes, be careful, but also learn to adopt it, and it's just being said like that in a bunch of different ways, there's still some truth to that, whether, you like it or not. So I think just looking to see what's the new, and, like be open to it.
Okay, so you take a computer, download the expensive software trial version, and at the end of the 30 days, wipe the computer clean, start again with the expensive software. Next.
So if I were teaching media and entertainment, especially in high school right now, I would start with just a cell phone. A cell phone today is better than any digital cinema camera when I was working in VFX. 2006, 2007, that's when digital cinema started. Your cell phone's better than every one of those sensors, hands down. The apps that are on there are extremely limited. I learned how to edit in camera. I didn't even have the ability to edit. I didn't have a computer. So I learned why we edit and how and when. So when I'm filming, I'm able to think how to edit. If you're on a cell phone, those apps, even the CapCut's a great one from ByteDance, but even just the built-in ones on Instagram, and TikTok, they're enough. They're enough to learn everything you need to know. And then after a couple of years of just cell phone classes, I would add computer, but it would be free software. It would be Blender. It would be Resolve, the free version. It would be, those two are like my main weapons right now, so it would be definitely those two. I would avoid Adobe. I would avoid, subscriptions and expensive stuff, and just, Blender, Resolve, and Unity and Unreal, those four, they're totally free. You don't even have to wipe your computer.
I just can't quit Maya anymore.
I'm gonna say that I do recommend Adobe. Now, and I've taught before, but I understand lack of resources. If you're a school, you can contact some of these companies like Maxon for Cinema 4D. If you want to learn Maya or these types, they have student licenses, and depending on your situation, you can actually get free licenses for students. There's tons of tutorials online that they can learn from, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the classroom. It could be a simple animation project. We're using Maya to do that. Here's some great tutorials you can learn from. These companies want people to buy their software when they go in to be professionals. Large-scale visual effects companies still use Maya. They still use, Resolve and all of that, but their workflows are very, very complicated. So if you can come in having some experience with one of their more sophisticated packages, then they'll actually, maybe there's an internship that you can get in and you actually learn on the job and meet other people who are using it professionally. So again, even if you're a student, you can go onto their website and say, I'm a student, I'd like to use this software. Sometimes they'll give you like 1-year license. So don't be afraid that because that it's high end that you can't access that. All these other things are true. All these other softwares are available for free, or you can experiment with AI. But if you can actually really learn how to rig, if you can learn Substance Painter, how to do surfacing, UVs, all that stuff, you'll start to elevate, as this from a visual effects perspective and animation, you'll elevate yourself up closer to being able to maybe go work at a place like a Pixar or a Disney or a Digital Domain or what have you. So those jobs do exist, but you do have to have an education in that software. Certainly CG Pro offers classes for that type of thing for sure. And there's some other schools. Renee teaches at the Noman School of Visual Effects. They teach that type of stuff. I used to teach there. I used to teach After Effects. These are still fundamental programs that people use to get these shows done. What I'm seeing with AI is that AI is literally just an extension of my other visual effects tools. It does some really good stuff. Like, I don't want to have to animate foliage on trees, but an AI can do it all day long. But it doesn't mean that that's the final shot. From what I've seen with AI, it's like we're still pretty far from it being able to create true HDR 6K beauty shots or 4K digital beauty shots that you would want to put Tom Cruise in. It could do a part of it. So that's where the learning is, like you guys keep saying, learn as many of these things as you can so that you can use a little smattering of this and that to combine it to something that's more final. So
Also, to quickly add to that with the Gen AI stuff, that's where it's like, it doesn't also have to be perfect, right? Like if you use Gen AI to just get the point across, and whether it's your online portfolio, whether it's conversationally, if you show someone a picture and you're like, hey, in this picture, this is what's happening, and then from here it goes to this and it goes to that, and then people start to follow your story, that's where then you might be able to build that momentum behind you as an individual to, to get your project off the ground if that's something you want to do, or just get into the room where there's similar projects being discussed that it's like, all right, cool, like you didn't have the tools back then, but now you have your chance here, because most of the time, sometimes, there's always that mentor-mentee type of relationship throughout the industry. There's always room for you to grow. So finding someone that, or even it goes both ways, finding someone that, oh, I know that they have it in them, I just need to find the right spot to give them that spark for them to blow up, or vice versa, to where I'm here, I'm trying to be hungry, I'm trying to just show people that I know what I'm talking about. Let me just get the point across. And then once I have the chance to get the point across, that's enough for people to start believing in, your story at that point. So even if it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be the 6K, 4K quality, but if you're still doing things, where, the hands are messed up still, or the face is looking weird or whatever, but if you just kind of put a little asterisk saying like, it's still Gen AI, like, forgive me type of thing, most people will still buy into what you're trying to, tell them still. So still good enough.
So I'm not going to push back on that, but I would split a tiny hair on that, which is that if you're trying to get a career as a worker, as a craftsman, a technician, a creative part of a overall process, I think the Gen AI actually hurts you in that case because it's not demonstrating skill, it's demonstrating ideas. And so the hair that I would split is that if you're trying to have a career working in it, I think your real being Gen AI is actually bad. If you have ideas and you want to get those ideas funded, especially if you want to get to above the line as fast as possible, you want to be the 19-year-old director, the backrooms kid that just got signed. Use AI because it is the cheapest, fastest, easiest way for you to convey your ideas, like you're saying. Yeah. But I do think that there's a fork in the road. Yeah. With AI, where it's not good, like you're saying, it's not good enough to go prompt to pixel, but it is good enough to go prompt to pitch. Like this, but better with your money and a whole team.
Give me that expensive software, and then I can show you what I can really do. Yeah, and I think it goes both ways. Yeah, totally what you were saying.
And also, just circle back around. You guys are talking about pitching, basically. Pitches they're as common, in almost every industry. Who hasn't done a PowerPoint? My Lord, just trying to get ideas across. Every industry has a different way of conveying those concepts and ideas so that so people can buy off on them to get the project launch. So pitching is learning at a young age, how to put together an idea to get it across so that somebody can maybe invest in that or take it to the next level. It's essentially a pitch. You're pitching your creative concepts. It's a very valuable skill to have when you actually do start work. If you got work, like I know young directors who that's all they do is they now use AI and their storyboards and scripts, and they pitch directly to agencies for different brands. Hey, this is a snack bar, the brand they've been working with forever. Here's another idea for the campaign next year. Pick mine, here's my ideas, right? That's a really great habit to get into. So definitely pitching is going to be good for you no matter which direction you go.
There's one warning with it, which is like all good Silicon Valley products, it's not about to. It's already getting very expensive. The stuff that you see, the VO3, the Google new model, it's stunning. It's so cool. It does voices. It's so cool. There are people doing, I don't know if you've seen the Gorilla POV. There are people doing incredible work. They're paying like $500 a day. Not $250 a month. $250 a month is a lot, but they're paying $500 a day just in generating 90% trash and 10% that goes into the final piece. High school kids cannot afford that, full stop. College kids cannot afford that, full stop. So very soon, the tools that are currently free or very cheap or within the realm of affordability are going to be the Mayas and the Houdinis and the expensive stuff. So if you're teaching the kids like we're going to learn AI, to a certain degree, you're teaching them tools that are going to be very rare and expensive. The way when I started, the machines were $2 million, and there was one of them per company, and there was one operator, right? So these AI tools are going to become unaffordably expensive very quickly.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about it quite like that before, but I think it's an important note since we're talking about the visual industry. I'm going to ask a potentially interesting question and see hopefully that's the right question for this room. How important is college for students in industries today? Are there alternative paths that teachers should begin sharing with students and parents?
This one's a fun one for me just because a little known fact about me is that I was 3 months away from graduating and the school went under. I tried to transfer to a different school, realized that the school wasn't for me, and I ended up dropping out. So this one, speaking from like personal experience, I think that's where, what do I tell a young one or like my future kids and stuff? I think my situation is not one to just be like, hey, he did it, like I can do it too. I knew that at that time in my life, my career was starting to pop off. I was saying no to jobs because I thought that I needed to go back to school for just, it was a piece of paper, it was an accomplishment in life, but my career was just always, I kept putting my career on stand to where I took that leap of faith, and now I'm here. So that's where I would say, be an adult with yourself. I think if you're at that point where you're graduating high school, you're 18, right? You're still young. You don't know what to really do with life. I think the most adult and mature thing to do is, do you have something already going on? Maybe take that leap of faith, because in 5 years from then, if things don't work out, you're only like 22, 23. You still have your whole life still ahead. That if you feel like that was a mistake and you need to go back to school to understand some foundations, great. You're going to go back and you're going to learn specific things, because by then you're slightly older, you know what you want to do, and it's more time well spent rather than time wasted. But if you're on the other side to where it's like, you're kind of vague with yourself, and you're like, I just want to get into film, do it financially affordable and correct for your situation, but also I think the most important thing to get out of it is just the foundations. I think the topic, or the advice that we give in a bunch of different ways, is knowing the foundations, knowing how to tell stories, knowing what drives you as an individual is the more important thing. What you use to get that point across is always going to be changing. And I think that's where, whether you're learning that online, whether you learn that in class, everyone will be telling you their own 2 cents. And I think at the end of the day, it lands on the individual to kind of dictate what really fits your story. So that's just, I would say, just to answer, I think at the end of the day, safe answer is yes, if you really don't know. But I think the more real question to ask is like, what makes sense for your situation?
I'd say for college, if you have a burning passion in your head that you cannot live unless you get this out, don't do college. But, I mean, a very specific, not just film, but a film or a game, or getting in the game industry versus a game. Do those. Make those experiences. You probably won't succeed, but all the things you're going to learn from your failures are going to trump anything that you could learn in college. But with the caveat is, college is amazing at teaching time management, and it's also somewhat of a safe space and a safe place for you to do as many, rack up internships all over, but do them in so many categories. Like I said, learn business, maybe intern with some lawyers so you learn the back end of the business, and use that safe time to really diversify all your skills aggressively. Don't think, oh, I'm going to graduate college and then I start my career. Your career starts the first day of freshman in high school. Heck, let's go even there. Or freshman in college. That's when your career starts. Mm-hmm. You just hope to get paid once those student loan bills come at the end. So,
don't got those when you have my situation.
I think it depends on the student, depends on the degree, is the simple answer. And if it's a way of delaying growing up until you're 22 because you don't know what you want to do at 18, it's probably a pretty expensive way to do that. I agree also, if you have like an idea, IP, something you want to make, school's going to kill it. But then conversely, if you want to learn, I went to film school. I think film is a trade school. I don't actually think it's a university. I took a lot of other classes, but I learned a trade. I learned a craft. And for me, it was right. And I am where I am because of everything I learned. And, that's the right answer. But I think I went to school with people that it was the wrong answer. Absolutely, and people that dropped out, So, unfortunately, I don't think we're at an age anymore where college is binary in any way for anyone. It's very, very hyper-individual.
So I'm glad I'm the last one to go because it gives me the most time to think about my answer. I went to Art Center, and I studied automotive design. There was no way, nowhere in the world that I was going to get the training that I needed to go, except to go to a school like that, to learn how to make clay models, to design cars from the ground up, to really understand how to design a vehicle. You can't learn that on the YouTube, and you can't learn that on the internet. And that was incredibly it created discipline and it created understanding. So when I was launched into my career, which I didn't go into cars, I actually went to animation, I had the discipline, the time management, the understanding of getting assignments, going through them, delivering things on time. It created an incredible amount of focus, and I was so passionate about it. It led me into my career in animation. So I think that college can, especially in film, look, you don't have access to good cameras at home. You have fine cell phones, that's fine, but you don't have access to like a Red or a Ari or or like if you want to learn lighting, dimmer boards and DMX and all these different things that you don't have that in your bedroom. You will at a college though. You have a theater that you can actually project your work onto to learn. So I think college is good for people that really want to access hardware and tools and processes that they're going to actually see in their future in the industry. Now getting back to the no college thing, I do agree that maybe taking a little bit of a break to sort of figure out what you want to do might be a good thing. But like if you take a look at some of the YouTube stars that are out there, I don't know if they went to college or not, but I'm pretty certain that they had a passion to get in front of the camera and make their show, whether they went to college or not. And maybe that blows up and it leads you to the promised land, or maybe you fail miserably and you learn from your mistakes and then you move on to something else, which is true. I failed many, my business has almost been in bankruptcy 5 times, but you have to survive. And how do you survive? By discipline. It's the only way. So, my opinion about it is, getting back to what Renee was saying, it's really based on the individual and what their ultimate goal is. So I can tell you, if you want to go work at a Pixar, you're going to need to have seat time in front of a computer, really working on your animations and outputting something that they can use in their pipeline. Otherwise, they won't hire you, okay? So, and find out, like, I also would tell my students, if you're excited about a certain company, go try to learn as much about that company as possible, about what their hiring practices are. What are they looking for in candidates? Go to a career day. They have career days at these companies sometimes. Or they have the Pixar guy who shows up at the convention that you can talk to. There's lots of resources out there for you to get more information about that. So that's what I have to say about that.
I need a rebuttal. So I haven't failed 5 times. I've failed 6. But I mean, the cool thing about college when I went is it's not that I didn't know what I wanted to do. It's just that I knew what I wanted to do hadn't been invented yet. And going through college was like, the curves and the going in that general direction. So yeah, it worked out for me.
I want to point out something, because we regularly hire interns and have a regular internship program at CG Pro. In fact, we have, I think, 3, maybe 4 of them right now, coming from some of the best film schools in the United States. And some of them that we've taken on have graduated from college, and what they've told me is that there used to be a promise of getting those paid internships outside of school that would then help you pay off your student loans. And those opportunities, at least right now, don't fully exist. And so I think if you know what you want to do and you're okay taking on the debt, then I think, and you want access to that equipment and you're hungry and you know that you are resourceful enough to make it, then I think that it's okay. But I think it's also important to know that a lot of these programs are taught by people who aren't in the industry anymore, or they might not, the field itself might limit you in what the generalist breadth that you might want to have when you go into the workforce. And a lot of people are finding themselves very stuck with very high student loans. And when I see that, I feel like I just want to say these words out loud, which is there's a level of indentured servitude that comes into play at that point, which I am seeing in several of our interns, which is very heartbreaking. So I think it's an important thing to know that there's alternatives, which is part of how CG Pro started as a trade school, but I would still tell someone if they were a high schooler, and I have told this with high schoolers that are taking our classes, and I say, take that drawing class, by the way. Go to that community college, take a theater class, get a lot of, your community college will offer a lot of these fundamental skills. And you can go into a trade school that might be cheaper or might be a shorter plan. And then maybe you can get your first job. And then, maybe just think about your options, because you don't always need to go to college, and it might actually be harmful because you might be able to rent that red for $5,000 for a month, but maybe it's going to be $50,000 per year for school, and maybe you could have done it yourself. And I'm not saying no college, but I just want to say that the world is changing a little bit.
I think to add with the world is changing aspect of it is that now, I started my career roughly 8 years ago. That was pre-COVID, I think, when times were more simpler, to where I was born and raised in LA, so my competition in my head, at least what I was being taught in school, was other people in LA, maybe in California, maybe across to New York, right? Thinking about it like traditional school situation, right? Where you're applying for a university, you're applying for your local people, out-of-state individuals, even some international people. Now I think with the shift of after COVID, working from home, wherever the industry decides to go, whether it's out of LA and Hollywood is no longer in Hollywood, whether it's now internationally, whatever the case may be, now students are no longer just competing with their peers anymore. It's now the whole nation, to some degree, the whole world in other departments. And I think to add to what you were saying is that the ticking time bomb starts the moment you decide what you're going to be spending your time on, and whether that is not going to school, whether that is going to school and saying to yourself, I have 4 years to get a solid reel, by the time I graduate, to where, to kind of loop with what you were saying, I have students that are graduating good universities in the area that are coming to me. They're like, hey, I graduated this past summer. What do I do now? And I'm like, what do you mean, what do you do now? You graduated, you should be in. And they're like, yeah, I'm lost. The industry is dry, the industry is competitive. I don't know what to really do, and this and this. And, they're coming to me for some form of advice, and that's where I feel thankful for that opportunity, but also that pressure of what do I say, because what worked for me 8 years ago doesn't really work now. I don't even know what works now, because there's people being laid off year in, year out. There's hundreds of employees getting laid off by these big companies, and now you're competing with these other individuals. So overall, no one really, at the end of the day, no one really knows what we're doing. We're all trying to adapt. And
no, we're all confident. We got it under control.
We got it all under control. There's no fires. But I think that's where it's being true to who you are, knowing what your passion is. Because at the end of the day, we're in a creative field, right? We don't have that job security like other industries do, to where the only thing that gets us up out of bed and into bed and then again the next day is just because we're passionate in what we do. And I think that's the most important part for people to understand, that your passion and your discipline needs to really carry you out to the finish line. And once you get to the finish line, that finish line is going to move again. So you got to be ready to move again.
I have something very razor focused, quick to add. The reason why I have the career that I have in Los Angeles is because after college, I was accepted at the Academy of TV Arts and Sciences Summer Internship Program, which is an amazing program. So anybody that has students in the creative field, have your students look that up and apply, because it's an amazing program. So just go for that.
I had the opposite experience, which was I went to film school and then graduated and said, okay, cool, I'm ready to direct movies. And some film schools, the one I went to in particular, is like a business school that only teaches how to be a C-suite executive. And then you graduate and you don't even know where the mail room is, because they only taught you where the boardroom is and how to make high-level, above-the-line director, producer, editor, cinematographer decisions. So I spent my summer just exactly like that 23 years ago. What now? And then my career wasn't like a good start. I've been a blind, bumblebee my entire career of just like I don't know. And I think that's really the real answer is curiosity, resilience, and I wouldn't call it bravery. I call it stupidity, but it looks like bravery. It's the willingness to just pick up the phone and call somebody, to walk in. I got my first visual effects job because I was a runner for a TV show that was using the visual effects company. I hated the TV show. They hated the TV show. They made a joke one day. "You're here? Oh, we should get you an office." And we all laughed. And I said, "Actually, I hate them. Can I come work for you?" And they were like, "Yeah, we hate them too. That would be awesome. We'd love to steal you." And then that's how I started my career in visual effects. I didn't go to school for visual effects. I had one special effects class. I knew computers, but I didn't have any, definitely no hard skills in visual effects. But it was tactical. It was like, go. The door opens just a tiny sliver, jam your foot in there and go through. And then keep doing it for 25 years and keep finding yourself back at that starting line and be okay with that, and that's especially, we're talking mostly about art schools and film schools and media and entertainment and, Hollywood, but that's the reality, at least my reality.
I'd like to, again, thank you for letting me go last because I'm able to really cogently put my thoughts together. I want to get back to what you were getting at, which is the student debt, which is a reality, and a lot of students, some people who are even passionate, feel like they can't even afford to go to college. And secondly, the availability of more niche types of colleges. Back when I was a student, there was only, 5 or maybe 3 or 4 schools that would appeal to me at all. And I had to physically go there. So now we have students can go ahead and Zoom in or whatever it is, virtual school, whatever, I forget the term. But what's so darn cool about that is, not only can you cherry pick the types of classes that you want that specifically fit to you, but a lot of that training, there are other professionals in those classes. That's the other big thing to note. You could be sitting there with an art director who's reinventing themselves, learning some sort of CG program or animation type of program because they know they need to train up. You get to know them and they get to know your work. They might say, "Hey, I was in class with this such and such. Let's have them come in. They're really nice. I thought their work was impressive." I've seen that happen so many times in my career. It's unbelievable. So that's the other thing is maybe pick something that's niche that you love, and a school like a CG Pro or a Noman School or some of these other ones that are very specific have working professionals training right next to you. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I was going to say the number of people that have taken a class at CG Pro and then gone on to do their own projects together or start businesses together or get hired from one another kind of blows my mind to this day. And I think that's what happens when you get a room of people together that are like-minded, is that you inspire each other and you get that real opportunity to show each other what you're made of. And I think it's really important. We're coming up to time, but I wanted to ask one last question. What soft skills like collaboration, resilience, or creative problem solving should teachers emphasize that will transfer directly into film or game careers?
I think collaboration and understanding that nothing is personal at the end of the day. I think that's where, in our creative industry, everything is a jumbled up sum of a lot of opinions result. And understanding that there's a time and place to fight your battles, and there's a time and place to just let something go and not take it personal, I think is one of those soft skills where when I reflect on people that I've worked with, and I'm like, what makes someone a good person to work for or work with, it's that whether it's my idea that wins or your idea that wins, it's that we're still all going for that end goal. And I think understanding that and knowing that I think now with how the industry is and the internet and Gen AI, it's like there's no real unique, one-of-a-kind idea anymore. It's all of a, like a parody of another idea that you don't even know existed. And that's where everyone is just making parodies of one another to some degree. And at that point, it's just realizing, like, cool, I don't have the golden idea anymore. I'm just here to go be creative and hope that people like this sum of an opinion. So I think being flexible, knowing, when your battles are, and then just understanding that nothing is personal at the end of the day. And, if it is personal, just move on. There's always tomorrow. There's always a different group of people that you can find that could be your community. And I think that's the most important part.
I think we should let Joffrey go next so that we have time.
Jeffrey?
Jeffrey, so that we have time
Excuse me.
To think.
Okay, I'll go next. I'll go next. So Renee and I are both virtual production supervisors when we're playing that role on the day at the stage. We both have different, I do creative direction. There's all types of things. But on the stage day, when you're doing virtual production, we are the supervisor, which means we're number 3 on the chain. It's the director, it's the director of photography, and then it's the virtual production supervisor are the Trinity, the Holy Trinity that put it all together so it looks great. Am I right so far?
Yep.
So he came to us with a show as the virtual production supervisor, made a recommendation to our stage, and the stage, because of his recommendation, decided to shoot at our LED stage. So when we first got together and we're sitting there, I'm like, well, this is awkward. There's 2 virtual production supervisors sitting here staring at each other. Who's in charge? So I went over to you, remember?
Yep.
I do not mince words. I like to make sure. So communication is my thing. I just say whatever's on my mind so that we can just come to a conclusion, because there's no reason being awkward. It's not going to work. So I just said, okay, dude, who's handling what? What are you doing? What am I? And I said, I like talking with the director and like da-da-da. He goes, I love operating more or whatever. We just divvied it up. And then at that point, bam, we just took off. And pretty much that's how we worked that show. And it was great because we knew where each other stood. He'd look at me if they asked a question, like, I don't know, go talk to Jeff, or I'd say, go talk to Renee, because that's what he had, his lane. So communication is really key, especially in film. That's why there's a hierarchy. That's why you start as a, PA and then work your way up so that you understand the chain of command. And then when you get that, then you know how to communicate with those groups of people. It's a very complex process that needs lots of communication, and everything has to be I's dotted and T's crossed. And then you're going to have happy accidents along the way that you have to take, but you have to be ready to take those, to include that in your work. And you can only do that if you're organized, So communication. Okay, your turn. Did you have enough time?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, right along with everything that has been said, but I guess check your ego and your insecurities at the door, and don't try to be the center of attention, because that does not equal longevity in any career. You've got to. It's not like getting the attention of that one person by being a jerk to everybody else, trying to get to that one person. It's not that one person way in the back that's going to make or break your career. It's all these other people that saw how you were under fire. How good to you were you to everybody else? There's every overnight success takes 10 years, and it's because of all the other people that you were good to. That's how you become successful.
I think everybody's kind of covered a lot of this answer to this question and the previous. There's do research, Google. That's your be curious, be a perpetual student, all those things. But it really does come down to, I don't have a demo reel, and I never have. I've been working professionally in the industry for 23 years, and I don't have a demo reel. I've never made one, and it's not because I'm that good. It's because I focus on the people around me, lifting them up, passing jobs on to people that I have no connection to. Then I come up, somebody's like, hey, we need somebody that can do this, that, and the other. I think Andy might be able to do that. I think he's available. So it's your network, and it's a non-transactional network. It's connecting people to each other with no attachment, no sort of finder's fee, no sort of like, it's just like you two, I think, would like each other. 10 years later, one of them will come back and something will happen. So it really is growing and building the largest community you possibly can. And then it's not about being reliable. Everyone's like, oh, show up on time. Yeah, sure. Deliver. If everyone around you knows that you're not going home, you're not going to let go until it's done and it's good, and that that they can rely on you. It's not that you're going to show up; it's that you're going to deliver. Then you'll have an infinite career because people will be like, "We're hosed. What do we do?" And it's always the people that are closers, the people that are reliable, the people, they might be expensive, they might be, barely available, but once they latch on, they're not going to let go until their piece of it is perfect and done. And that's, you can't teach that really, but you can you can emphasize it.
You learn it through trial and error and failure, and then you make sure it's very important.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, the people you're sitting next to right now in your classroom, technically, one of them could hire you one day. All the people you meet throughout college, all of that stuff, the people you're out there, you start to build up your network, that person could become some executive at some company, or they could some startup and they want to get you involved because you were cool and you delivered and you showed passion. 100%.
I think one last thing to quickly add is go into every conversation with the intention to make a friend. And I think on top of that, there is no more like getting away from the high school mentality. It's like there's no more cool. It's to be honest, the nerdier you are, the better you are, and everyone gravitates to the nerds. And my producers just be like, you got to go talk to the nerds. The nerds know what's up. They know what's real, and whatever the nerds say is where we go. So that's where. To some degree, it's like, hone in on your craft and, you'll become a source of knowledge that people will blindly trust somehow. But yeah.
So I'm going to list mine as well. And this is kind of a bit of an ode to the person who's filming us in the back right now, because I just love movers and shakers. I love people who are willing to make it happen and find opportunity. And I think today you make your own opportunity. And I wish that there were more structures that were in place for that. But I think the lateral thinking and the creative thinking and the willingness to become a mover and shaker and make it happen is so important. And when I have someone like that as a friend or on my team, it is the most invaluable person on the team. Someone who takes initiative, someone who's willing to get it done. I value them the most. And so that would be a soft skill that I would recommend honing. But I don't know if we have any more time left, so I think it is time for us to wrap this up. But thank you so much for listening, and I hope you got some value out of it.